Hey guys, I'm Chris.
Hey everybody, I'm Robert.
And we're the Film Flamers.
And, per tradition, at the start of the year, we
set fire to the rain
to the previous year.
Up in Flames 2023, right? This is the one where we talk about all of the great and not so great films or horror adjacent films of the previous year.
And maybe not so many films, or not only films. Sometimes we talk about television or at large. Mostly.
It's a celebration, or depending on how you feel, a celebration
of visual horror of the previous year.
So we'll be talking about some of our favorites and not so favorites, and hopefully some things that you missed so that we can tell you to go watch them.
That's right. And as it turns out, maybe some middle of the road movies as well.
Maybe a sea of those.
Yes, perhaps. And other films as well.
Like Moses, we shall part. The sea.
We'll part the sea of mediocrity to bring you the good and the bad. So maybe this year you want to do it a little differently and talk about our 10 favorite horror movies and then talk about some of the not so good ones.
Oh yeah, let's reveal our top 10.
Let's do that. And
this year we're doing it even especially different because our lists ended up being so similar that we decided to kind of just combine them.
That's right. In the past, there have been a smattering of movies that have made it up to both of our top 10s, but they have been vastly different sometimes in placement. And this year does not seem to be the case for that.
Right. So we fed both of our lists into ChatGPT for the most state-of-the-art top 10 list. And it promptly got it wrong, so I had to do it manually and break out my calculator on my phone.
That's right. So you're still doing math. That's good.
Yeah. Anyway, should we start at the bottom and work our way up?
Yes, per tradition.
All right. Well, starting with number 10 is, and this is a surprise to me, Cobweb.
I was also surprised that this movie made it into my top 10.
Yeah, and this is by, I don't know this director, Samuel Bodin.
Samuel Bodin. Yeah, he's directed some French movies. I have never heard of him, really, but I was surprised at how much I really enjoyed this movie. Mostly because, it played in the theaters for, a second, blink and you've missed it moment in the summertime. And I remember, I don't remember seeing a trailer for it. I just saw a poster art or something.
Yeah, I didn't either. But for the longest time, I want to say 3 or 4 months, my husband, Matt, was telling me that he had heard that it was good and that we should watch it. Of course, both he and I were a little bit more middle of the road on it than you were, but I knew that you would like it. And I really loved its setup for a possible franchise because no spoilers. But what gets introduced in this movie could easily be something that's in several movies to come.
Yes, and that makes me very excited, without giving too much away, obviously. But this movie is really good because it went to places that I wasn't expecting. And in last year, that didn't really happen a lot watching horror movies. Everything seemed so rote.
Yeah. And so this movie actually is about a little boy who is living at home with his parents and things are a little off.
Yes.
And he starts having problems at home and at school, and he starts hearing some voices, and that's where our story kind of begins.
And I think it begins and starts to go into other places, and the one thing that I really didn't care for in this movie really was some of the acting choices, mostly from Lizzie Kaplan.
Yeah, kind of peculiar there, but it's always fun to see Lizzie Kaplan.
Yeah. And the guy from The Boys.
Yes.
Who plays her husband and this little boy's parents, right? There's obviously something wrong with them or something's just, like Chris said, off. But it goes to really surprising places. The movie takes place in Halloween and it's completely rewatchable in my opinion.
That's right. We could have that as a Halloween movie.
Right. And I feel like it's a really good yearly Halloween watch. I mean, there's nothing but fucking pumpkins in this movie. And, what's more Halloween than that? Really?
That's right. There are certainly more Halloween-y movies like Trick or Treat or The Guest or something like that. But
that's true. But Halloween still.
Yeah.
Holiday horror. Of course, I loved it.
Shall we move on?
Yes, and our number 9 movie is something else that I was also pleasantly surprised with, and that is Megan, or M3gan.
Yes, and I was kind of shocked as well because I was very, very late to this bandwagon, and of course, familiarity and popularity breed contempt.
Yeah.
As we all know and have seen with big franchises like Marvel and Avatar and things like that. When things get too popular, people are like, no, I don't want to see it. I'm special. And I was that way and I didn't want to see it. So I actually made myself sit down and watch it and I had a fucking blast. It was fun.
For real. And I'm sure most people have seen it at this point, but still, we're not going to spoil a whole lot from this top 10 list because we want you to go watch these movies if you have not. But much like you, I wasn't really interested in seeing M3 and like it was released in January. That's almost never a good sign for horror movies. And I was like, I've already seen a movie about a killer doll. I've seen many, many of them. I don't need another one. And I watched it like in the springtime after it was released onto Peacock. And I was just like, what the fuck is this movie?
Yeah, I didn't watch it until December.
Yeah, you were a little late to the game. But I don't know, this movie's really good because it is not what you are expecting. Like, if you have a preconceived notion about what Megan is, you're wrong. Like, this movie hits a very deliberately, like, alternating tone in it.
But it's kind of still stays within the lines.
Yes.
Like, it knows itself and it strikes a tone and it's all very on purpose. Right?
It goes...
And it strays very, very little. It's not a, it has its problems, right? But it's largely just succeeds just in having a nice popcorn fun. I almost want to say it's this year's Malignant.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I feel like this movie alternates from like really melodramatic moments to like this weird tongue in cheek, like satire even.
Right.
And like, it just works for it. And like, do yourself a favor when you watch it, make sure you watch the unrated director's cut, the one with all the gore, you know? And like,
I did not, apparently.
It was delightful and fun. I had a really good time and I was shocked, I tell you, at how much I liked Megan.
Right. And one thing that I really like about that director, Jared Johnstone, is that he also directed Housebound.
That's right.
So if you haven't seen Housebound, that came out 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know, years ago. Within the last, yeah. And it's just a really good, I think it's a British comedy.
Or Australian, something like
Australian, yeah. But it's really, really funny, like robotic teddy bear and stuff like that. And it's kind of actually similar to Cobweb in a way.
It's true.
But also Allison Williams from Get Out is the lead.
And she was good in this movie.
And she was great.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, just shocked at how much I loved it.
Next up, we've got Knock at the Cabin. Now, of course, this is based on a novel, but this was directed by M. Night Shyamalan, shockingly, and stars a big cast, including, Ron from Harry Potter franchise, but also Dave Bautista, who's also mainly known, I think, from Marvel and Dune now. But of course, he did a fantastic job.
Surprisingly.
And a small cast, single location, in a cabin, very kind of gay friendly. Kind of interesting choice for mainstream horror and mostly successful, although I hated the ending.
Yeah, I mean, I think I liked the ending more than you did. I didn't really have a problem with it, but this is something that Chris and I saw together in the theater, and right after it came out, because I loved this book so much when I read it, and I was really anticipating this movie. And I think that the difference is that the movie had from the book, like, sort of worked for it. Like, they sort of stood alone. And I just really, really liked Dave Bautista's performance. And I also really liked, like, the queer aspect to it, right?
So you told me what the book ending was, and I think we discussed it, and I think we decided, or at least I decided, that I liked the book ending better.
Yes, we did at the time.
Yeah.
So, I liked it because these characters are incidentally gay and dads.
Yeah,
right?
Totally incidentally. It's not over the top. It's just they are who they are, and they have adopted a little girl. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to have a vacation, and then these people come along who are insane. Well, right. They may or may not be insane, I should say.
That's the twist.
Yeah,
right?
but we don't want to, yeah. And you can expect twists because M. Night Shyamalan, right? He has to do it. He just is compelled.
He can't help himself.
Right. So, but otherwise, it's just shot beautifully. It's acted wonderfully. It's directed meticulously. I would say I would watch it again. I would recommend it. Obviously, it's our number 8 on our top 10.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also streaming now. So, I mean, a lot of these movies are very, very easily acceptable. So, accessible. So
yeah, it's kind of like The Strangers, except it's a little bit more twisted than that. It's a little bit more accessible than that, too.
I mean, it's a little
daylight horror.
Yeah.
Very daylight horror.
Very daylight horror. It's very, like, there are some, like, supernatural-ish moments in it. It's also home invasion-y, And it has some genuinely scary moments to it. Like I really thought that it was a good movie.
Yeah, and that's hard to do with daylight horror sometimes, and I really dig that.
And the performance by Dave Bautista was shocking to me. Like I didn't know that he had that level of acting in him, really.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be lumped in with the other like people that came from like boxing and wrestling or whatever. He doesn't. He actively says, "I do not do what they do." Right. So he really wants to be an actor with a capital A, you know.
And I feel like that's evident in this particular movie.
Easily. And he's been in Villeneuve movies since Blade Runner 2049 and now in Dune and stuff. In MCU, and with this, I feel like he's definitely proven his acting chops, that he has a wide range.
But again, this is one that I would definitely watch again.
Very gentle giant.
Yes, I want to hug him, you know.
Or maybe not so gentle. We'll find out when you watch it. What's next?
Our number 7 movie of 2023 was Thanksgiving.
Ooh, 2 holiday movies so far.
That's right. Holiday horror abound up in here.
Right.
Thanksgiving was something that I think Chris and I were both looking forward to ever since we saw the fake trailer for it during Grindhouse.
Many years ago.
Decades ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, like that fake Eli Roth trailer for the grindhousey slasher-y
that's the one we wanted the most. Yeah.
Was the movie that I wanted to see.
We got Machete.
We did get Machete.
Yeah.
And I was like, and Machete's great, you know? But like all these years, I'm like, where the hell is Thanksgiving? And then when Eli Roth announced that he was going to be making it, I was like, yes. And then I found out it was going to be set present day. And I was just like, oh no, like that's going to be bad. And then I went to go see this in the theater and I just had the best fucking time watching this movie.
He's a competent director every time. I don't think he's made a bad movie.
No, I like all of Eli Roth's movies. And the thing I like most about him and the thing I like most about Thanksgiving is that he can very easily pay homage to like subgenres of horror or like past like horror influences and still make his own movie.
It really felt like a 90s horror movie.
It did. Like this felt like a Scream or I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Definitely on the side of I Know What You Did Last Summer. For
yeah.
Sure.
So they could have called this like Scream If You Know What I Did Last Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's slashery, but it's also a mystery. It's a whodunit. You know, like the slasher, the killer could be anyone of this cast.
It was almost a better Scream sequel than the Scream sequel we got this year.
For sure. I mean,
although that wasn't bad either.
No, it wasn't, you know, but
it's not our top 10.
No, it did not quite make it. Although for a large chunk of the year, that Scream movie was in my
because
top
it came
10.
out very early.
Exactly.
That's the only reason why.
But I thought like the acting was good in this. I thought the gore was good in Thanksgiving. It was surprisingly funny, or maybe not so surprising because it's an Eli Roth movie. But I thought it was fun.
Eli Roth movies always have a little tongue in their cheek.
Yeah. And I don't know, there were just some moments in this movie that I thought was like, this is just really, really great. And I left that theater like super happy. I mean, for goodness sakes, like there's a Thanksgiving dinner involving a corpse. You know what I mean? But it still somehow is funny.
I kind of still wanted it to be more than it was, you know, in moments, but this is not really a review. This is just our list. But
well, it is kind of a review because I mean, maybe if it had pushed its boundaries a little bit more and made it a little bit more shocking, it could have been higher.
It felt a little PG-13.
Yeah.
Certainly not PG-13 back in the 90s.
No.
It would have been certainly R.
But it needed something else. I feel like anybody who's seen an Eli Roth movie knows that he can know no bounds.
Yeah, he can know, certainly. I mean, when he came out of the gate swinging with Cabin Fever, you know, I feel like he can do more shocking gore than the stuff in this.
I mean, The Green Inferno, case in point, you know, but I feel like this is like a very accessible Eli Roth movie.
Yeah, I just either wanted it to be a little more serious or more tongue-in-cheek. And it just like kept on. It didn't quite thread the needle like Megan did, even though it's higher on our list because it's just more consistently good quality. I don't know why it's higher.
Well, and this is the third movie that we've talked about so far that I feel like could be some sort of a franchise, right? We already talked about possible sequel for Cobweb. For sure. Megan clearly could have a sequel. And I feel like this is a really good slasher killer, right? So bring it on. Bring more of it.
So up next is our number 6, which is Leave the World Behind. And this is directed by Sam Esmail. And stars Julia Roberts and Mahershala Ali and Ethan Hawke and Michaela Harold. And this was a shocker for me. I never expected in a million years that I would be adding this to my top 10 or even really watching it until I kept seeing it on some lists, you know, and then like you had seen it. But this was a very late addition to my top 10. And I was and still am kind of shocked at how good it is. It has so much to say, and it's so economical about it with so few cast and such a limited location. You know, it's very Stephen King-y in a way, but like almost like in a modern sense, you know? And so I was really, really impressed with that. I loved Julia Roberts in this. I thought it was kind of in a way kind of brave for her in some ways to play this role. I thought everyone did a great job. Maharashi Ali is always good. Ethan Hawke was fun to see, and Mahala Harold was a standout.
Yeah, I've really, really loved her performance in this. And actually the two female leads, because Julia Roberts did an excellent job in this movie. I mean, I make no qualms about monologues. I stan a monologue, and this movie did not disappoint when it came to them.
Yeah, and they seemed very natural to be versus some Mike Flanagan now. I'm like, okay, we're heading into a monologue, you know? If people leave a room and there's only two people left, you know, there's going to be a monologue, you know, versus it felt very natural. Although the same thing's happening. It felt very natural and leave the world behind. And, it really did also strike a tone. And if you're okay with post-apocalyptic or experiencing the apocalypse essentially, but if you're okay with some ambiguity in your ending, maybe not as stark as or upsetting as The Mist, but some ambiguity in your ending and just want to enjoy the ride and the point of it being kind of ambiguous and that kind of being part of the point, I think you would really, really enjoy this. And I will enjoy it and recommend it for years to come. Yeah,
I mean, you kind of took the words out of my mouth too. I mean, I think that the thing I liked the most about Leave the World Behind was unanswered questions, right? And I feel like people get too wrapped up sometimes in the why of it all.
Yeah.
When that's not the scariest thing, right? The scariest thing is just literally what's happening. If you just focus on the events and focus less on explanation or exposition, right, you just have a much better movie.
Well, it was a really good point because it's I don't want to get too philosophical. You know, we could go back to Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning or whatever, where we always need a reason why things happen to give them and ascribe them meaning so we can get through it, you know, and think about it in a certain way and categorize it in our brains. And it's if this were actually going to happen and we didn't have any media or anything else and people were actually trying to confuse us and there could be a supernatural element or there could be a political element or whatever, it almost doesn't matter if the only point left is to survive, right? And to be human. And so it's just a really, really interesting story and point of view by the end of the film. Where it begins and where it ends is completely different. And I think it's an achievement.
And I would agree. And I feel like a lot of people might argue that this isn't a horror movie, right? And I mean, it is squarely horror adjacent. But the whole entire movie is filled with horror moments and horror beats.
Yeah, totally.
And it is super tense from start to finish. It is a masterclass in tension building.
And most of that is in the daylight as well.
Exactly. There's a lot of daylight horror going on this year. And I feel like out of all of our top 10, or at least the movies that we've talked about so far, this is the first thing that I would say this needs to be deep dived.
Yeah, this is begging for a deep dive.
And I feel like there's a lot to talk about in this particular movie. And I feel like on subsequent watches, you'll get a lot more out of it because I watched it and then watched it again with you. And I liked it so much more the second time. I raised my rating. I raised its ranking in my list on Letterboxd, and I was just I kind of hungry to watch it again because I feel like I missed things, and I think that speaks very highly of a movie.
I definitely need to digest it for a few weeks, but now I could watch it again.
And now we can say that we have a horror movie on a top 10 list that was produced by Barack and Michelle Obama.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Right? It was in the credits. Yep. The first time I watched it, I was just now what? I had to rewind a little bit. I'd be it does say Barack and Michelle Obama.
And there's some racial commentary that kind of reminds you of the Obamas a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a little bit of what they went through.
I mean, I feel like people need to see this movie. And I know that when it was first released on Netflix, it was at the top of its weekly or daily list for a very long time. I know people are still watching it, and I think that more people will start to discover it, right? But word of mouth needs to happen for sure. If you haven't seen Leave the World Behind, go do it
for sure
right now. Number 5 of our horror list from 2023 is a Netflix series, actually. So long format horror. And this is Mike Flanagan's Fall of the House of Usher.
Right. And of course, we're Flana fans. And I love that this is in our top 5. And as we head into our top 5, I can't think of a better contender than to include Something by Mike Flanagan. And I love that his miniseries are included on Letterboxd, and are kind of included in movies. And I think more miniseries should be included in things like the Oscars, maybe, and other things. So this was, again, kind of almost a return to form in my head, because Mike Flanagan's done a few series, like Midnight Club, where he's gone and he's directed like the first and last episode. Right. I think Bly Manor was kind of like that. And then he kind of fucked off and other directors came in, and you can tell, and they've suffered for it. Because the directors that he brings in aren't quite as good as him. Although he found a director for Fall of the House of Usher that he did like every other episode, and including the finale, and they are essentially kind of ghost directing in his style, and did a very, very good job. And I think he was closer to this one. And Fall of the House of Usher also brings in new cast, right? And so with this and Midnight Mass and Haunting of Hill House, I think those are like his top 3 that he's done. And it also kind of is the end of his story on Netflix, because he's moving over to Amazon. And some of the new casts that have come in is Mary McDonnell from Dances with Wolves, Battlestar Galactica fame.
Madam President herself.
Yep. And Mark Hamill from Star Wars and, everything else fame.
Who I think was super exceptional.
They were both amazing, especially Mark Hamill.
Yeah, I thought he did a very, very good job. I mean, and we're fans of his acting troupe regardless, Yeah. We like all of them. Kate Siegel.
I wish he'd bring back some folks from Oculus, because he hasn't worked with those people again.
He is.
He is.
So he has a movie coming out based on a Stephen King short novel called The Life of Chuck.
Okay.
And what's her name from Oculus and Guardians of the Galaxy is returning to the troupe for that.
Okay. I forget her name. I was thinking Katie Sackhoff, since we mentioned Madam President, because Katie Sackhoff, of course, was in Battlestar, and she played the mother in Oculus.
And I think that people want to keep working with him, and maybe because now he's going to be developing the Dark Tower series.
Okay.
Right? Probably over on Amazon, although that hasn't been completely announced yet. I feel like there's a lot of characters throughout those novels that he can bring some of these actors back. And they seem to want to work with him all the time, right? And Follow the House of Usher, for me, was good. And I feel like we've talked about this already on a Shooting the Flames, like when it was first released on Netflix. So we've given some thoughts about it, but it really was a return to form. And I was enthralled with this all the way through. I thought he made all the best choices when trying to adapt Edgar Allan Poe. He modernized the stories but stayed very, very true to the original work, and he made each episode kind of standalone but contained in this whole universe, and it just really, really worked for me on multiple levels.
Yeah, it was really, really well constructed.
Yes.
And carefully architected, I think. And he did a good job. And it's on my top 10, and obviously it combined into our top 5 here. I think it was a little higher on your list. For me, I am starting to really see the pattern, though, now that we have enough Mike Flanagan out there. I really just see that pattern of monologue. And I love the monologues, but it's I can predict things that are happening. And then he seems to sometimes be relying more on jump scares and reveals than he is on actual creeping dread, things that he was able to really, really do well back in Oculus or even Haunting of Hill House days.
For sure that.
And he has not really done that really consistently since those days, and has relied more on just the gothic environment of his stories being darker toned, and then his monologues and jump scares. And so I'm getting a little bit frayed at the edges of that, and I don't know how to describe it, just a little bit fatigued.
I think that's fair, and I feel like it's time for Flanagan to leave that format behind for a little bit. Not everything has to be long format television. He makes really good standalone feature length films,
Yeah.
And I feel it's been a minute since Dr. Sleep was released, and so I'm not sure if Life of Chuck is a multi-part movie. It's being described as a movie. I'm not sure if it's going to be streaming or we don't know very much about it at all. But I kind of hope that it is just a feature length movie, because I kind of miss a shorter format Flanagan too.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, because
he has to kill more of his darlings that way, because
Yeah.
he has to fit it all into a 2-hour time slot. And even Dr. Sleep, there's a cut of it that's almost like 2.5 or 3 hours, right? In the chapters,
which is a good cut,
which is a great cut, but he does have to boil things down to their essence a little bit more.
Reel it in.
We've really sidetracked here. Speaking of reeling it in.
Enough. God, I know. Well, this happens.
Anyway,
right?
We love you, Mike Flanagan. We want Season of Passage.
Bring it already.
Yeah. Next up on our list is number 4, and this is Accused. And I don't think this is going to be on any other lists. I haven't seen it on any other lists.
I have not.
It doesn't have the best ratings on Letterboxd, but for some reason, we saw this at the Overlook Film Festival. And this is directed by Philip Barantini, and it stars Janil Kullar. And he does an amazing job as someone kind of mistakenly viewed as a terrorist, essentially. And of course, he is like Indian or Pakistan, I don't know, like Arabic descent. I've forgotten.
Yeah.
He's kind of framed just because he had the skin color and was kind of wearing a similar outfit. Of course, the terrorist ended up being, I think it was like a white guy, but it doesn't matter because the internet got hold of it and falsely accused him and tracked him down. And it's basically a home invasion movie. And the tension that this movie ratchets up, and he's very human through this. It doesn't treat him like some sort of tragic hero. He is kind of a coward throughout half of it because, as he should be. These people are descending on him and his family's home, and it's fucking terrifying. It reminds me of The Strangers. I probably haven't been as tense in a movie since then. And I feel like it's as good as it is important. And for a long time during this year, it was my number 1.
It was really high on my list throughout the entire year, and I feel like it was one of our favorite movies, obviously from the Overlook.
Yeah.
And we were quite surprised by it because we went into this movie like really not knowing anything about it, and I feel like it's a good way to watch this movie for the tension alone. I feel like out of our top 10, that's like the common theme through these things. Like we have chosen movies that are really, really good at tension building. And this one for sure is. And what's really good about it is that you just have no idea where it's going. Like I kept thinking that the movie was winding down and then it wasn't. And it would like ratchet back up again. And I don't know, it was just really, really shocking at like my response to it, how scared I was when I was watching it. And it's not even like a traditional kind of horror movie.
No,
right?
But it's really well paced, and it does give you a few moments to breathe, and then it was right back into it, but not too much because it's building that, pressure cooker essentially of a movie, and it does it really, really well. And you can kind of see people and how they react and, who they are as a person, like him and his girlfriend and like
that's right.
later on his parents and stuff.
And his neighbor, things like that. Yeah.
His neighbor. Exactly. And so it's like, you really see, it's like, it's one of those, movies where it's kind of like, microcosm.
A microcosm of like the environment that you live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was a British film, and like, I don't know, it was just really, really good. And we left the festival and I was thinking to myself, like, this movie's going to fucking explode, and people are going to be talking about it. And I just have heard nothing.
No. And it was just like had this really, really soft release. It was really held back for a while. And I was confused why they didn't just release it. And I don't know where it was released eventually. I don't know if it's on Hulu or if it's,
I have no idea.
Or if it even was released, I don't know, but I just hope people can watch it. I know it was released.
It is released. You can, because some people have talked about it. I've seen it on social media.
It's kind of hard to find though too, because there's like a TV show and then another movie that are kind of recent called Accused.
Yeah. And they should have picked a better title.
Yeah.
Like obviously, but like, it's a really good movie and we cannot stop recommending it. So definitely go and watch it. I feel like we also gushed all over this movie in our episode on the Overlook when we got back.
Right.
So our number 3 movie from 2023 is another film that we first saw at the Overlook. And that is a little blockbuster called Talk to Me.
Right. This is the one that A24 picked up. I think they picked it up as we were, or right after we were out of the Overlook.
Possibly. Yeah.
Right. And so, they were able to sign and we got really excited about it. I think it was the secret screening.
It was. So we had no idea what we were going into, standing in line to see this movie. And we're like, okay, it's Talk to Me. and people seemed excited about it in the theater.
Yep.
Again, it's a movie that we knew very, very little about, and Chris and I both loved it when we watched it. It's another example of leaving the theater just sort of like loving a movie and expecting it to blow up and be very, very popular. And this one didn't disappoint. Like it made a good chunk of money while playing in the movie theaters over the summer after its release, and is already slated to have sequels and prequels and things like that. So it's built a universe for itself.
Right. And these directors, Michael and Danny Philippou, now they were just like YouTube guys, right? Doing like short films and stuff like that. And so this is their first film out the gate, and they did an amazing job. And of course, I always love seeing Miranda Otto of Lord of the Rings fame, as well as a couple of other things. And Sophie Wilde did an amazing job in this.
Sophie Wilde is the lead actress, lead character in this movie, is really, really good. I really like the universe that they created for this, right? The rules around the things that they did. And like Chris and I were sort of like ready for this movie to be released because we wanted to support it. And after The Overlook, I feel like, we talked about this movie quite a bit and encouraged people to watch it. In fact, we paid to go see it again in the theater in the summertime, like after it was released. And I don't know, did your response to it change? Like on that second viewing at all?
I think a little bit. I think it was, obviously at the film festival, it's a mixed bag. So you see like a string of bad movies in a row. When one that's like halfway decent comes around, it's like, holy shit, that was amazing. Oscars, and it may not be the case. But we weren't the only ones. Everyone in these festivals was coming out talking about Talk to Me, and it had legs. A24 obviously picked it up, which was really rare. I mean, obviously when these things happen, you usually see like XYZ or some of the other, Neon pick these up, but A24 picked this up to distribute and decided they were going to try and make it a tentpole. And it kind of was, and it was kind of a blockbuster. But again, I say, popularity breeds contempt. And it's like something can really grow legs and grow by word of mouth. And this certainly did. And it was a success. But like critically, people started to be like, it's not as good as and the ratings, kind of went down a little bit. Versus something has to be just like really out there and subvert all expectations. You just have to have no clue what you're walking into for it to survive that level of popularity and word of mouth. Mm-hmm. Something along the lines of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
It's true.
Which only now is getting people going, oh, it wasn't that good,
Which is bullshit.
So,
but I feel like Talk to Me is completely rewatchable. I will never stop recommending this movie to people who are looking for something. And it just, again, shows you that A24 can make thought-provoking, serious horror films and then also make something that's really, really fun and exciting, which is still nonetheless thought-provoking, right?
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, but just Talk to Me is technically about like a group of kind of high schoolers that have it's kind of an allusion to drugs, where they talk to this hand, this gypsy, mummified gypsy hand or something, and they can hold on to it for only so long, and they're basically getting possessed by these ghosts or spirits, and it's kind of like getting high or something, doing whippets or something. And then, of course, when they abuse that, what happens? And so it's really interesting and bizarre and fun. So if you've been living under a rock, go see Talk to Me.
Well, bring on the sequel, too.
Talk to Me, 2.
Yeah. Talk number 2, me.
Oh, God. Please, no. This wasn't going to be. Talk 3, me. We can do all the threes.
Talk
3 again.
3 again.
Throw 1 3 in. So our number 2 is a little movie called When Evil Lurks. And I don't know, a lot of people within the horror community, I think, have seen this because they're familiar with this director, and a lot of the casual horror enjoyers probably have not, because it probably wasn't in theaters where they were, a Spanish language. It's by Damien Rugna, who, if you recall, did a little movie called Terrified, which we did a deep dive into, and it's one of the scariest movies, if not the scariest movie that we've ever covered.
And I feel like When Evil Lurks is continuing that trend for this director, because this movie is fucking terrifying.
It's not as terrifying as Terrified.
No.
But it definitely has its moments where it kind of breaks the kind of unspoken rules of horror when concerning women, children,
animals,
gore, violence,
Yeah.
Not that there's animal death.
No, not really.
So I don't think there's animal death, but there's animals involved in death. Not to spoil anything, but this is kind of a wet Grinch salad. And I love ballsy movies like this. And it's kind of another post-apocalyptic. I probably would have enjoyed it more the first time I watched it if I had kind of understood. Sometimes non-English movies are a little bit faster in their setup, and they don't have like the title cards explaining the plot like American audiences need because we're so dumb. But yeah, it's apparently it's post-apocalyptic, post-religion, and it's kind of, a zombie movie essentially, kind of, or a possession movie, right? It's the best possession movie of the year, definitely better than that other fucking piece of shit.
Which we will get into at some point in this conversation for sure. But
definitely, if you're looking for something new and different and you liked Terrified or you liked Dark and the Wicked and you like things kind of like that, like the slow build and shocking moments and stuff like that, definitely more shocking than Dark and the Wicked. But I would definitely recommend When Evil Lurks.
And talk about like top of lists, right? So I mean, like When Evil Lurks is literally on everyone's horror list this year, toward the top of it.
Damn.
Yeah. So I feel like it's not just us.
Good. Okay.
I feel like people who are ranking horror and talking about like best horror movies of the year, this is on no one's list. There's no exceptions. Like it was just well received critically. And I agree. Again, I like it when movies don't have to explain too much. This movie explains just enough to really get you to kind of understand the world in which these characters live in. It's just another example of a really created universe that just works for this particular movie. And like, it's the one time this year that I scrimped out loud, like loudly watching something. I jumped so high out of my seat and screamed. And I was just like, now what?
The scream in which you screamed.
I swear, like the first like 30, 40 minutes of this movie is like breakneck. And I'm like, we were watching it and Chris is like, do you need a break? I'm like, yes, I need a moment to catch my breath because this movie is not letting me. It is just like,
not that it's action packed. It's just like the tension's just mounting.
It gets to be so much, but in the most enjoyable way. Like we finished this movie and I was just like, this movie's amazing. Like 5 stars fully. I rated this movie 5 stars on Letterboxd. And I just think that it's really, really good. And this director is so good at making horror movies. And I cannot wait to see what else he puts out there. And I know that there was an anthology movie that he had a piece in called Satanic Hispanics.
Satanic Hispanics. Yeah, I need to see it still.
That I really want to see just based on the title alone, you know, but obviously we can't see every movie that comes out in 2023.
No.
So, or any year for that matter. But When Evil Lurks, guys, it's on Shudder, like, or AMC Plus at this point, so go watch it, find it where you can, because it is a really good horror movie. And I think more people need to see it.
Yeah. If you don't mind a, wet Grinch salad,
I mean,
go watch that thing.
It's not happy. That's for sure.
It's a mean movie.
Yes, it really is. It is mean spirited, but in the best, most enjoyable ways.
If you like that sort of thing.
And I do.
Yes.
All right. So we've reached the moment where we talk about our favorite horror movie of the year. Our number one movie is a movie that I can almost guarantee you have never seen.
Yes.
Maybe not even heard of.
God, we're little contrarian bitches, aren't we?
I mean, sometimes we just can't help ourselves, but every once in a while, something comes along that makes you so happy and so scared and just really excited to be horror fans. And this is something called
let's not do the reveal quite yet.
Okay.
Because I'm sure people are guessing, right?
Oh.
This movie is made by a very young, upcoming filmmaker who is trying to capture a certain feeling. And they did so very, very successfully. And I think there's actually 2 movies like that this year. And you probably think we're talking about the big one that's on everyone's list called fucking Skinamarink. And guess what? That's not our number one. No,
it is not. It is not Skinamarink.
What is it, Robert?
It's called The Oldest View.
And it's technically not even a movie, but it's over a short, right? So it's in 3 parts, and it's called The Oldest View. And the first part is kind of skippable. I don't really understand it. I need someone to explain it. And then the second part is kind of an intro, which is longer, more like 15, 20 minutes, I think.
Yep.
And then the last part is more like 45 minutes, right? And so if you take those together, it's higher than like the typical 50-minute limit for a short film.
Yeah.
So this is a feature film, folks. It's on YouTube. It's just in 3 parts. And really, it's those last 2 parts of The Oldest View that you need to see. And it might especially be kind of up our alleys because it takes place in a dilapidated, closed mall. And it's the Valley View Mall, I believe, which is why Oldest View, from the Dallas area that we probably scampered around as teenagers and kids at some point.
Had been in many times.
Yes, and I recognize some of it. And you can watch YouTube videos of people actually going through it before it was demolished and seeing a lot of the stores and signs and props and statues and different things that are in there in real life. And this filmmaker kind of is famous. His name is Kane Parsons. And he went and did some creepypasta from the internet that had been floating around for quite a while called The Backrooms.
Yep.
Right? Clipping into the back rooms. You know, if you go into like this other reality and you're just in the back rooms of a mall or a store somewhere. It's been in creepypastas in different forms in various stories over the last 10 years or so, probably, right? I think the Never-Ending IKEA is one of those stories. Anyway, this guy kind of visualized the backrooms in his own shorts for the first time.
That's right.
And then he went on and did this, and he's only like 19 years old at this point.
Which is outstanding.
And because of this and his previous work that he's released on YouTube, he is now getting to do a feature-length movie of the Backrooms with none other than James Wan producing. So we are going to be looking at this kid's career very, very closely because this is cosmic horror. This is psychological thriller, mystery, supernatural. Fuck, I don't fucking know.
It's genre defying. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
subgenre defying.
It's almost found footage. Well, I guess it is found footage.
Yeah, it is found footage.
And it's also mixed media because parts of it are filmed, but the vast majority of it is animated. But you wouldn't know that.
I had no idea.
It looks so real. This kid used various animation programs on his computer, either game engines or otherwise, and then put some recording video style stuff on it to make it look real. And you're not sure which, because he had to painstakingly do some of those details and scan those in. And I don't know how he did that. I still am kind of astounded by his achievement here as far as what he was able to visualize in this and how much compositing he did, what's real and what's not. You'll never know because, of course, while you're watching it for the first time, unless some idiot podcaster is telling you that it's not real, it is. It's for all intents and purposes, it is. And so it's very, very special. And it's also the scariest thing I've probably saw all year. That includes When Evil Lurks. When Evil Lurks has definitely more gore and shocking moments, but The Oldest View really has you on edge and really creeps the fuck out of you.
It just works on like a very basic horror level, right? And succeeds and is really, really quite terrifying because I had no idea that this thing even existed until you're like, hey, let's watch this. Like I just watched it and I was like completely entranced by it the entire time. I could not like tear myself away from it. And I was just horrified the entire time. Like it just seems so simple. But like I was completely scared.
It grows and grows and grows and grows and gets worse and worse.
Right.
And more surreal. And it's just amazing. It's just this kid walking through this mall and experiencing that over a series of days until he may or may not get trapped down there.
But the whole thing is inexplicable,
Yeah.
Like there's a whole setup and you're like, I don't know. Like you have no idea where this story is going. And again, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't have to explain anything. It just is.
It's almost not even cosmic horror. It's almost like reality horror or something,
Yeah. I mean, because like if you're looking for explanation, like just stop and just enjoy it. And there are just some things that you're like, you wouldn't think would be super terrifying and maybe not at first glance, but as the movie goes on, like you just get more scared of the things that you've already seen in this movie.
And there's almost no dialogue outside of this guy just talking to himself to kind of almost ease himself through this,
Right.
talking to his eventual audience, whoever's going to watch this, whenever he uploads it, if he ever gets a chance to, turning off and on his phone flashlight to see things better and walking through this mall is just really, really well done. So if you get a chance, don't miss it. And we'll probably put a link just in the show notes here because it's free on YouTube. You can just go watch on your TV, pull up, YouTube, or on your phone, or on your tablet, and find The Oldest View parts 2 and 3. If you do watch part 1, if you're curious, it's really kind of weird and artsy, and it doesn't really have much to do with the later parts, unless I'm really just missing something. So don't let that turn you down or turn you off. Definitely watch 2 and 3 though.
I still don't know why they need part 1,
Yeah.
But like maybe the more I watch it, it'll start to make sense. And I have shown people this, like since you showed it to me, I've shown like 2 or 3 other people.
Oh,
I'm
really?
like, let's sit down and watch it. Like I've watched it so many times now.
Oh, really?
So I continuously get scared by it. Like I've been scared every time.
Awesome.
So yeah, 5 stars for me for The Oldest View. And since you mentioned Skinamarink, I would say like that is the opposite side of this coin.
Right. And so like that's in a lot of people's number ones. I think almost to be contrarian in a way, because I did not enjoy that.
Oh, God.
I put in my review that if I was rating this as a student film, I'd rate it very highly indeed, like 4 or 5 easily, because it's really unique and they do a good job at what they're trying to do, I guess, which is kind of cultivate a feeling. And many different feelings of being alone in a dark house as a child, especially during like the 80s or something,
right?
Which it kind of invokes, right? But like trying to just sit through this, it's not a group watch,
no.
And as a single it's just kind of boring. I was almost falling asleep, and that's kind of a cardinal sin for me. Like, so as a narrative film, like and especially if I'm going to compare it to The Oldest View, which is also kind of in the same vein, really trying to invoke a feeling and a tone in a certain space and time, right? And be kind of artistic about it, right? But The Oldest View has a narrative, even though it has like less characters, and probably even less dialogue if you count the whole thing. But Skinamarink is a slog by itself. Sure. It's so boring, although it has probably the best jump scare of the whole year, in my opinion, even better than Summon When Evil Lurks, their stupid fucking phone.
I don't know.
So with the goddamn googly eyes.
I need to be weary of this, and I say it all the time. Like every year, there's always something that's like, oh, it's the scariest movie ever made, and blah blah. Everyone's going to be terrified by it, and then it sort of catches my attention, and so like this movie started to get buzz because it didn't start playing festivals until the end of 2022, and then they released it in this sort of like special one weekend only kind of thing in January or February, like really, really early in the year. And so I was like, all right, I'll go see it. So I went to the theater by myself because I was like, it's only going to play for like a day. I better go see it.
Yeah.
And the whole time was just sighing. And I was just like, okay, like something's going to happen. Something's bound to happen in this film. And then I'm like, no, like turn after turn. I'm like, okay, it's just another shot of a wall. Or like a staircase, or like people are talking, but you never get to see their faces really.
Or they're like Charlie Brown and you can't really hear what they're saying.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's like you said earlier, as a student film, I would say it's very successful, but like it's just not. It's super, super boring.
It is. And I feel like maybe if you're, got into a really good headspace where you can pretend you're a kid and you have shut down all the lights in your house and you're alone and it's 3 a.m. and you put this thing on, you can really get into it. But I just couldn't. It's hard for me to get scared. And like, this is just like watching a screensaver.
Yeah.
Literally just, and there was a little bit of a story there, but I had to like read about it on Wikipedia because I just couldn't really piece it together, and it wasn't.
I didn't
obvious.
even bother to do that because I just didn't care.
I had to work really, really hard to be part of this movie, and I'm not going to blame the filmmakers there because I don't think they ever intended this to be popular. They were just trying to do what Kane Parsons was trying to do, just put something out there.
Yeah,
and then it just got some group on the internet just went crazy about it. It got picked up and put in theaters. And so it's not really their fault, And so that's why I said, I was careful to say, like, as a student film, as an art piece, I would rate this much, much higher than as a film, an operating film. And it just does not exist to me as a film. It exists as an art piece.
And I am not trying to be contrarian with this because I know a lot of people really, really like this movie. I just don't see how. When I left the theater, people were watching this in groups and they were standing in the lobby or outside. Like I walked past one group and they were talking about just how wonderful it was and like how astounding it was. And I was just like, did we even watch the same fucking movie? Because I was angry.
How decadent. It's like, it just feels like, I feel so contrarian. It's like.
I don't know. And like, I think people who listen to our podcast regularly know that I don't really give low ratings to things. Like, to me, even watching a bad movie is still a good time. And I rarely ever go any lower than like 2.5 stars for a movie. And to me, 2.5 stars is like, oh, that I didn't care for that. I rated this movie 0.5 star.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, I
think I rated it like 2. I think I rated it like 2 stars.
I just can't fucking stand this movie. And like, I don't know. It's on a lot of lists. It's a lot of number ones. People are still talking about it. It's streaming, you know, and I don't get it. And maybe that's it, you know, although I don't think there's much to get in it.
No. And it's kind of an interesting story. I mean, the kid went back to his childhood home, you know, and shot this film based on what he wanted to do, and just got a bunch of angles and stuff like that. And then was able to kind of put it together. It's very, very grainy, and probably a lot of it was done in post and other things, but I don't know. I'm just not into it. I feel like as a contender for horror film of the year or on a top 10, it doesn't belong there. It's not one of those. It wasn't intended to be.
And I mean, so like that's the opposite side of the coin. Like I said, we just talked about 10 movies that we really, really liked from 2023, and then one that we really, really did not. But I think
because it really, really contrasts with The Oldest View.
For sure.
Yeah.
Even having not seen The Oldest View, had I not watched that in 2023, I still wouldn't have liked Skinamarink. But
I don't know that the director of Skinamarink is getting a production deal with James Wan.
Probably not,
because he's not telling a story.
But I think like my biggest takeaway from last year is that we literally had to wade through a sea of mediocrity all year long. Like, it just, every time I watched a horror movie, I was like, it was fine. You know, like it was okay.
We're kind of a 3.5 star podcast anyway, but we this year was a real 3.5 star, even 3 star, kind of slog in some ways. And although I don't want to like blame the franchises, but a lot of that was the franchises. Scream was probably the best. We had a lot of franchise entries into horror this year. It was supposed to be a great year, and maybe part of that is expectation building, because we got Scream and it was good, but not great. We got Insidious, which was meh. The Nun, which was okay, in my opinion. The new Exorcist film, which was, in my opinion, fine. But it was shitty for the franchise that it's supposed to be continuing. It's supposed to be the prestige possession franchise of all time. And they brought in something that didn't bring anything new to the table and wasn't interesting or particularly great. And Evil Dead, to me, was kind of the same. A lot of people loved it, though. And I don't want to, yuck anyone's yum. And then Saw, of course, was surprisingly good. But the franchises kind of let us down. We did not get a single, in my opinion, great entry from a major franchise.
No. And like you said earlier, they were all just fine. Fine, if not kind of bad. I mean, I really
ranging from good to not great.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that I didn't see all of these franchise entries, you know what I mean? But I felt like the new Scream movie was good. I think they made some changes that kind of like reinvigorated some of it.
Yeah.
And I really like those directors, so that was good. And Evil Dead, I feel like there was a lot of anticipation for it. And I don't think that it was a bad movie, No,
and we also saw that at Overlook. And we expected to just love it.
And it was just okay.
It was fine.
And like The Exorcist, I was looking forward to that for quite some time, and I don't know why I now will no longer ever trust David Gordon Green.
No,
with a cinematic experience,
and we didn't before anyway.
That's true.
We were making fun of it before it ever came out. When it was announced, we were making fun of it.
But I was still looking forward to it. And then, from the first trailer on, I was just like, oh God, I'm less excited. And then when that movie was released and it was kind of panned, not even kind of, it was panned.
Body in the bod. Oh my God, that little girl's talking in church. How shocking.
I know. She's covered in blood. But like, I was like, this movie literally has stolen from the original, right? And made it way less shocking, way less scary, and just very, very ho-hum. I feel like with The Exorcist, it has some good ideas. The Exorcist Believer, that is, has some good ideas that it didn't flesh out, And so like by the time I got around to watching it, I was expecting to hate it, and I didn't. Just like every other horror movie I saw in 2023, I was like, it was okay. Not as bad as I was expecting, but also not good.
Yeah.
you know? And so I feel like these franchises, like you said, just kind of suffered, and maybe it's time to just put some of them to rest. You know, I think the one exception for me, franchise-wise, that I think I enjoyed more than you did, and I really didn't enjoy it as much on a second watch, was Socks.
Yeah, Saw X. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tobin Bell did an amazing job.
He was great in
It was probably the top 3 Saw movie. We'll say that.
Yeah. Out of obviously 10 of them and soon to be 11. And so but like you said, Tobin Bell, I think really did an amazing job in this movie. And the whole thing starts out as just like a man's journey through cancer and then becomes the Saw that we know and love, you know? And I don't know if that saves it or not.
No,
you know?
It doesn't. And it makes it worse to me in some ways because it really tries to set him up, you know, as some sort of like, a
sympathetic villain.
Yeah. And you can make a sympathetic villain without making him an anti-hero, you know, and they really tried to tread that line and it didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
But that's me. So yeah, that was a standout of all the franchise stuff. That was probably the best besides Scream, which was a kind of a good entry, I guess. Scream never has super sucked, I guess. I also wanted to call out Smoking Causes Coughing, which is another film that we saw overlook. Yeah. And of course, this is French. This is Quentin Dupieux or whatever. I don't know how to say French stuff. What else did he do? Like the tire one? Rubber.
Yeah. Mandibles.
Yeah. So this is kind of an anthology, which I did not expect. And it's batshit. And it was on my top 10 forever. And it just recently got marked down. But I will definitely recommend that and watch it. It's one of those that's kind of probably fun with a little help from your favorite substances.
For sure.
Yeah, but Smoking Causes Coughing is just a lot of fun. If you're looking for something wacky and dark and weird, Power Rangers with gore, like sitting around a campfire telling stories with talking fish and bucket head monsters and just random shit and a talking rat with ooze and having sex with women. Yeah.
It was fucking bonkers.
Shit. Yeah. Just absolute bad shit.
And a lot of fun. And it was really high on my list for most of the year too. And it's sort of like, it's still toward the top of it. Like it's definitely in the top 15, but like,
yeah, me too.
I don't know. I feel like 2023 was the year that I need to learn to let expectations go because other movies came out this year that I just like Five Nights at Freddy's. I've been talking about that on the podcast since we started this podcast. And it was to me like one of the worst movies of the year. And like just every step of the way, I found myself just waiting for a movie to like, you know, floor me.
Well, yeah. And we talked about the franchises. This is what I would call the tent poles, right?
Yeah.
So we got Voyage of the Demeter, which was, I absolutely fucking hated. Everyone else loved, but I
still haven't seen it.
Fucking hate it. Yeah. You probably haven't seen it because I told you not to. Because I absolutely hate it. It's one of my favorite chapters in Bram Stoker's Dracula and Voyage of the Demeter. And, you know, and they just, to me, it was just shitty. Absolutely shitty. I hated the Dracula in it. I didn't care about any of the characters. We had Boogeyman. That was just kind of ho-hum. Yeah. Renfield was kind of ho-hum to me, although fun. We saw that at Overlook as well. Five Nights at Freddy's, like you said, kind of ho-hum. And Godzilla, which everyone just is humping.
Oscar-nominated Godzilla.
For what?
This one. Best visual effects.
Visual effects, fine. Yeah, great. Yeah. Great visual effects. I was also kind of ho-hum on that.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I was just scrolling through my list on Letterboxd and I was just like, all right, is there anything else that I feel like needs some sort of mention? And I was just like, no, because they're all just like, they're just there. They're good. They're good to okay movies.
Yeah.
Was what 2023 was, you know? I feel like there are some movies that probably deserve a little bit of mention, like maybe No One Will Save You. I thought had a good concept to it. Right. And the aliens were really cool looking.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was like a number 10 for me for a long time. It just got pushed off recently.
And
some people hate that ending. I actually dig it. I liked
it,
but it's a journey that matters. And there was it's aliens, but it's one of the only ones where the aliens don't all look alike. And so all the aliens look different. So if you're afraid of a certain like kind of look or something, it might be in there and it might scare the shit out of you.
I was into it. I was into that movie all the way up until the ending. And I was just like, what? What now?
Yep.
It ruined it for me. But not enough for me to hate that movie. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. It was still a good,
There's a
enjoyable
weird
movie.
B plot to it as well. It just doesn't sit really right.
But the
it's just
aliens,
a lot of fucking fun. That girl did a great job, and
she was
aliens
amazing.
Were great. I thought the effects were special, and it's just a good, fun popcorn horror watch. I also kind of wanted to mention Interview with a Vampire TV. Mm-hmm. I didn't watch much horror TV. I meant to watch Chucky at some point.
We always say that every year on these episodes.
And, and like all the others that we've been told to watch, like 30 Coins has been on our list for like 5 years.
Yeah.
We're just not huge TV watchers when it comes to horror, and we really like are dropping the ball there. Although I did watch Interview with a Vampire on AMC Plus, starring Jacob Anderson as Louis and Sam Reed as Lestat, and I was floored with how good Sam Reed was as the Lestat, and of course Jacob Anderson does great. Edward Bogosian or just someone Bogosian?
Yeah, from Delores Claiborne that we just talked about.
Yeah,
Bogosian.
And he's in it as well. But it's great. They did an amazing job at that series, and they're really just pumping it. They've done a whole season, and they're only halfway through the fucking first book, which is disappointing. But they really got the atmosphere and the acting down. And I can't wait to see what they do with it. And the season 2, I think, is about to be released soonish.
Well, I need to get on that and finish it because I started it, and
also the music's by the guy that did Green Knight. It was great.
It is high on my list of things to finish for sure, guys. Obviously, we want to know like if we missed some movies, and if we didn't talk about something that was something that you really really loved and we just failed to mention it. Let us know what that is. And we'll check it out. But like obviously we watched other movies.
We did. We watched, I think you watched 32. I watched 33 or something like that.
Yeah, I have logged 32 movies.
And we've only talked about like 12, 13, 14 on this podcast. Yeah. So we've watched a lot more than this. But we only talked about the best and the worst, I think.
That's true.
And mentioned a lot of the franchises and tentpoles. But I don't know. To let us know if we missed something, if there's like a hidden gem, diamond in the rough somewhere that we've missed along the way. And we'll let you know. Easiest thing nowadays is just to join as a patron and comment on these episodes or in our chat over there.
That's right. We do have a chat that
started. We need to work on those notifications.
Please, Patreon. But it would not be a year-end episode without looking forward into 2024. And there are a handful of movies that I think that Chris and I are kind of like looking forward to, or at least are interested in, like the first Aumann, which is coming out in April, right? So the Aumann prequel.
Yeah. That comes out right around the time we're going to be in Overlook Film Festival this year. And so I'm really, really looking forward to that. Along with, we're going to be talking about Shooting the Flames February. Abigail trailer just launched, which looks really, really fun. We'll be talking about that then.
That's right.
Hoping I get to see that maybe at the Overlook, along with the biggest buzz out of Sundance, which is a movie called I Saw the TV Glow. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be kind of Buffy-esque. So I'm really, really on board for that. And I'm hoping we get to see all those at Overlook, if not in the theaters around that time.
We have, so one of my favorite horror movies, The Strangers, is having some sort of rebooting, and The Strangers Chapter 1, directed by none other than Rennie Harlin, is coming out. I know, like part of my soul died a little bit when I saw that he was directing that movie.
I keep thinking that's one of those director names when you don't want to be listed as director.
Like an Alan Smithy film. Yeah. It's a Rennie Harlin film. We're going to find out. I mean, like, I wasn't fully on board when they made The Strangers 2 Pray at Night. I've liked it better on subsequent watches. So I don't know. Maybe like Rennie will surprise us. But we also have The Quiet Place prequel. So Day One. So I'm looking forward to that. And Alien Romulus is coming out this August. So, and that is Fede Alvarez's entry into the Alien franchise. And I think we talked about a news article on a Shooting the Flames recently where Ridley Scott has already seen it and has liked it very much.
Well, I don't know if I trust Ridley Scott anymore.
I know.
I almost trust Rennie Harlin. He did The Long Kiss Goodnight back in 1996, but who knows if he's still a good director. Ridley Scott hasn't been a good director for like 20 years, so we'll see. I haven't seen Napoleon. Did he do Napoleon?
Yeah.
It wasn't listed as a Best Picture nom.
No, it didn't get any Oscar nominees, actually.
It did.
Oh, maybe a costume design or something.
Yeah, costumes and some other things.
And then I think maybe like one of the things that I'm most looking forward to, and I don't know why, because I am kind of weary now of some of these like big name horror directors that came out over the last 10 years, but Robert Eggers' Nosferatu is coming out on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I liked The Witch.
The Witch was great.
I did not enjoy The Lighthouse as much, although it's high art. And then the next one he did, I didn't appreciate as much either.
The Norseman or something like that?
The Northman.
Yeah,
the acting was great. That. I mean, everything was narratively, story-wise, it just wasn't great.
But Nosferatu has like a stacked cast, and like I'm kind of here for it because it looks like homage to classic horror. And there are some things that are supposed to be released in 2024.
Well, wait, like what? I guess that could be the year for Alexander Skarsgård, right? Or is it Alexander or is it the other
Bill
Skarsgård? Because he is also going to be, of course, I think he's playing
the Crow.
The Crow, but and which may come out this year. But also he's going to be in Nosferatu. He's playing Nosferatu guy, whatever, Count Orlok.
And we're still waiting on a release date for Maxine, so the final movie in the X trilogy. So I'm looking forward to that, even though Mia Goth apparently wants to kick people in the head. And they've been threatening to release Salem's Lot, which has been filmed for these many years now and has not seen the light of day. I assume eventually they're just going to shove it onto a streaming platform, and we will not get the theater release that I was hoping for.
Why? I wonder, is it that bad?
I'm starting to think.
Who directed it?
I don't know. But it's been finished for more than 2 years.
Ridley Scott.
Salem's Lot.
Damn it. It's Kevin Spacey. They had to reshoot every fucking frame of film.
They had to edit him out completely. But if they've held on to a movie for more than 2 years without release, I'm starting to think that maybe it's just probably not very good. There's also a new Conjuring movie coming out this year, too. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm always on board for those.
They've been surprisingly good.
Yeah.
So
maybe not the most rewatchable after the first couple, but certainly very good.
The last one I liked.
Yeah, me too.
So. Well, I think that just about wraps up 2023 and our discussion about it. Let's never speak of it again, shall we? Unless you decide to leave us a comment, and you can do that on social media. Follow us at The Film Flamers on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, X, whatever they're called now. We're on all the places.
Yeah, you can also email us at tiredqueens@filmflamers.com, or you can call our hotline at 972-666-7733. Rennie our Harlands.
Skin of my rink.
Ooh.
Actually, don't do that. That is terrible.
Oh, that sounds itchy.
Like Chris said earlier, head over to patreon.com/thefilmflamers to join our family over there. We have a whole group chat going, which whenever I open it and try to talk to people, it seems like there's lots of discussions going on. So yeah, I have been having a good time going through and seeing what everyone's talking about over there. In fact, I've gotten some recommendations of things that I would like to watch and added to my watch list from it. So
for real. And guess what? Next month we've got more episodes coming out. Shocker.
That's right. Even though 2023 ended, 2024 is just beginning. And it's February. It's the month of love. And we're going to be talking about Possession.
And It Follows.
Finally, It Follows. I think one of the movies that prompted us to even want to have a podcast to begin with.
Nothing like sexually transmitted demons to get a podcast rolling.
I mean, it's my fantasy. Well, Chris, I think it's time for us to go off, let 2023 go up in flames, and have some sweet dreams. Out of 5 stars, what would you rate 2023? 3 stars. It was 3 stars.
Definitely, I would say a 2.5.
It was a 2.5 year?
Yeah, it wasn't quite like 2020, but it was the worst year since 2020, I think.
I wouldn't go that far. I think 2023 was just middle of the road, like every horror movie I saw.
Beige.